Welcome to Shanghai International Circuit for round 8 of the 2015 GT Asia Series, a series that's seen some incredible racing already, and already this weekend we've seen some amazing stints. Unfortunately, we had a freight hold-up with our Freightliner taking the cars from Sepang 3 weeks ago here into China. We couldn't get the cars delivered in time, so we lost a day, which is unofficial practice on Thursday. So it was a very spirited and fired-up group of drivers that met the starter for the 2 official practice sessions on Friday morning. In the end, lap record, gone. Top drivers right in the mix. We had 4 marks, 6 cars, 35 100ths of a second by the time qualifying started. Who would get pole? We didn't know. The fastest man around Shanghai 12 months ago, Richard Lyons. You can see the blue car on the left of screen at the front row. He set pole position. In the end, broke his own lap record, 1:46.985. The number 88 Interrush Aston Martin, the only car to go under the 1:47 mark in the 2 15-minute sessions. Second qualifying session, of course, we'll see race 2 tomorrow afternoon. His teammate, Daniel Lloyd, the recruit for the injured Jonathan Venter, arrived on the scene, very much an unknown quantity for the round at Sepang. Of course, the very first endurance race, a 3-hour race for the GT Asia Series, as we see the 1-minute board being displayed to the teams. And he set pole position the very first time he jumped in the car and ran right at the front of the field, keeping Darryl O'Young's championship well and truly alive. So we'll see him start the second stanza of this race. Darryl O'Young, of course, will start. He qualified in position number 8. But it was Richard Lyons who set the pole alongside him. Alessandro Guidi, we saw him run in GT Asia with the Clearwater Racing team last year. Didn't expect him here today. He's replacing James Collado, who was unable to get himself a visa to enter China. So Guidi found out 2 days before opening practice that he would be jumping on a plane, fresh from the Nürburgring, raced there last weekend, as did his teammate Matt Griffin, as did Alvaro Parente, who will start rear of field, but we'll get to that shortly. Antonio Luzzi made the most of the Triple F Racing McLaren. He's sharing with Sean Fu this weekend, replacing his brother-in-law, Andrea Caldarelli, who's away on Super GT duties as the field now gets underway to roll around for the start. Of course, a rolling start for the GT Asia Series. Antonio Luzzi taking position number 3. Then it was Carlo Van Dam. Hadn't seen this circuit before, strangely, nor either Piti Bhirombhakdi, the car owner of the TP12 yellow and blue Ferrari 458. You'll see it, 4th car back, just coming into screen now. Behind them, Duncan Tappy. Matt Griffin then in the chrome and blue car, just going through screen now, position number 6. Young Nathan Antunes, the Australian driver who's running at the front of the Australian GT Championship. He qualified in position number 7. Position number 8, we spoke about him already, Darryl O'Young, who for much of this championship has been right at the pointy end of the points table. Davide Rizzo, pole sitter here last year, a little bit further back than we might have expected to see the BBT Ferrari. The bright red and yellow car just went through screen then. And Kita Sawa, already a winner so far in the championship this year, a 2-time winner alongside Adelie Fong. They are the championship points leader. That car on screen now, the leading of the 2 Bentleys, the number 8 Absolute Racing Bentley Continental GT3. Leader of the GTM class after qualifying, the Belgian GT star, Dylan Didali. He's sharing with Hisashi Cooney in the Golf Racing JP991 Porsche Cup car. It's a little bit further back in the field as we see the drivers trying to get some temperature into the car. 5.451 is the full distance of this circuit, the Grand Prix circuit. Of course, we lose a little bit around turns 5 and 6. It actually runs through turn 3, 4, and then a chicane into turn 7. So shorter race distance, just over 5 kilometres. Spirited, as we said, absolutely. 6 cars in P2, separated by 35 100ths of a second. That was 4 marks. There's been a lot of work done this year to get all these cars matched on pace, and it looks very much like they've got the formula absolutely right. Safety car just running the field down to turn 14. 14 into a slight kink, 15 a short straight into turn 16, the left-hander. They will wait for the starter's orders. Once they are given the green light, it is go. And with little separating these teams already this weekend, it's sure to be a very interesting start. Richard Lyons on the pole. Alessandro Guidi behind. Antonio Luzzi, Carlo Van Dam, Duncan Tappy, Matt Griffin, and the list goes on. Nathan Antunes, Darryl O'Young, Davide Rizzo. It is a very talented field, and a lot of the drivers that have not been here before, Andy Merrick's one of them, and he's down in position number 11, the M Sport Bentley Continental factory driver. Admit that the depth of this field is amazing. It's been a real standout year for the GT Asia Series. Coming to a start, Richard Lyons on the inside. That's Philip Ma heading to the pits. In fact, Hopin Tung driving the number 98 Absolute Audi. They have to be in formation. Will we get a green light? And who will win this drag race to the first turn? Will it be the V8 Ferraris? Will it be the twin-turbo V8 Bentley? Will it be the V12 Aston Martin of Richard Lyons, who moves across just ever so slightly to hold that position and keep Alessandro Guidi behind him? Great move by Max Visa to go around the outside into the turn 1, 2, 3 complex. He watched J.K. Vernet do that last year to go from the fourth row to lead through this part of the circuit. And a number of positions he's made up, Max Visa, in that bright blue and dark blue 458 Ferrari. A little bit further back, a little bit of dust, 2-3 wide battle as they come to the chicane. They won't go through there too wide. There's been a few incidences this weekend where drivers have cut that particular part of the circuit, but nothing like that this time round. As we see Lyons, Van Dam has got the jump now on Guidi to run into position number 2. A little bit further back, the GTM battle. So it's Lyons, it's Van Dam, it's Guidi, it's Lutzi, it's Duncan Tappy there, has Nathan Antunes right up behind him. Matt Griffin dropped back a little bit. Look at Visa's moved up to position number 8 already. Started on the 4th row of the grid. In fact, started further back than that. Started on the 6th row of the grid. So he's moved forward 2 rows already. Strong runner, has been a front runner in the past, but not in a Ferrari. This is his second run in the Ferrari. Of course, they were driving the yellow and red car 2 positions further back at the Fuji round and made the podium as Duncan Tappy looks for a move up the inside of Tonio Luzzi. Will he take the position away on the run down to turn 14? He'll take it up, go along the inside, and will he get the crossover Luzzi and take that position back? Of course, we've seen Lutzi in the 55 so far this year alongside Hiroshi Hamaguchi. They won round 3 of the championship this year at Okayama. But now Hamaguchi is joined this weekend by McLaren factory driver Alvaro Parente, who's been very, very impressive. They start rear of field. You see him right back behind the pack, up to about position number 13 already, as we now watch Antunes look to dive down the inside of Tappy. No, in fact, Tappy's got both of them right up under his rear wing. They're very keen to make the most of this new speed that they've found out of these twin-turbo 3.8 litre McLaren 650S V8s. They're very quick this weekend, and Parente, in fact, was expected to run at the front of qualifying. Unfortunately, a technical issue immediately after practice, where he had placed P3, kept the team from making qualifying. So in both races 1 and 2 this weekend, Parente and Hiroshi Hamaguchi will start rear of field. So we'll look to see that car come through the field as this race extends on. So Lyons punching out laps in the low 48s already. Van Dam immediately behind. Very little track time here for the Dutch driver, but very, very talented. We've seen that already. They have been a round winner so far this year at Fuji in the opening race in the damp conditions. Very good drive by Piti Bhirombhakdi. Position number 2, Alessandro Guidi in the number 1 Clearwater Racing Ferrari of Mok Wang's son in position number 3. Duncan Tappy doing a brilliant job in Jackie Jung's JV Global Bentley Continental, and he'll be joined this weekend not by Jung but Andrew Kim, one of Jung's opponents in the Audi R8 LMS Cup. Matt Griffin looking to make a position up the inside there of Nathan Antunes. Will he make it stick? Just runs the Australian a little bit wide on the exit. Now it'll be a drag race down to turn 16. No, he's going to just squeeze in front of the Australian. That's given him good racing room. In fact, that was a nice move by Griffin. Gave Antunes, who he knew was just up his inside, enough room to fight back. Now it'll be a drag race into the fast turn 1 right-hander, and you see Max Visa still looking to make up positions and try and move forward. A very good drive by the Italian. Lives here locally in Shanghai, drives with Youngs in, and has been a podium place getter in GT Asia in the past. Up the inside there by Griffin, a little bit squirrely on the exit. Visa's looking very racy, trying to get through. Immediately behind him, also residents of Shanghai, Davide Rizzo. He won here with Anthony Liu last time round, and of course won last time out at Sepang in the 3-hour race just 3 weeks ago. Matt Griffin on screen. He has young Australian GT Championship front runner, and up until recently the points leader, Nathan Antunis, immediately behind him. Darryl O'Young a little bit further back. You see the yellow VLT car. They are already race winners so far this year. Of course, won the second race with young Jonathan Venter, the Australian, alongside in South Korea, the opening event of the year. Duncan Tappy looks to be just dropping a little bit off the tail of the leading trio now, but he's getting ahead comfortably now of Lutzi and Visa, Griffin and Nathan Antunis. Davide Rizzo was probably a little bit slower than we would have expected. The red and yellow car there, that pole sitter here last year, won the first race comfortably, may have even won the second race, was running right at the front in race 2, and had contact with the Bentley Continental of, at that stage, Gilles Vanelay, and was eliminated from the race. That effectively cost them not just the race, but ultimately could have cost them the championship. Anthony Liu going on to finish at the front of the field on his debut at Macau last year, but didn't amass enough points to displace Mokwang Sun from winning his third championship last year, which is an impressive job in just 6 seasons of the GT Asia Series. So Matt Griffin, Nürburgring last weekend, was crowned the Blancpain GT Pro-Am champion. Of course, racing for AF Corsa and Ferrari, up under the rear wing of former Formula One driver Tonio Luzzi. Australian GT front-runner Nathan Antunis tucked in under his rear wing. He will hand across to Rod Salmon, a 2-time Bathurst 12-hour winner. The next time round, this is their third event with the Triple F racing team by ACM McLaren operation. But up front, still Richard Lyons. He said just prior to the race, I need to get out and I need to go. I need to hand Frank Yu the biggest lead I possibly can so that he can go on and try and take victory in this race. Of course, Frank Yu, very racy, and last weekend was in Singapore for the TCR Asia Series race. Ran at the front of the field all weekend. Should have probably won both races, but contact in one race and debris in the cooling ducts of his Craft Bamboo Racing Seat Leon forced the car into limp mode. He fell from first to fourth and was forced to fight back through the field, wound up on the podium in both races, did a sterling job, enjoyed his time in the TCR touring car, but of course now back in his much-loved Aston Martin Vantage and hoping to carry on what Richard Lyons has started here. The Irishman doing a great job, opening out just over a second lead now from Carlo Van Dam in that yellow, blue and silver Singer Ferrari 458. Still this battle goes on. It's Tonio Luzzi, it's Matt Griffin, it's Nathan Antunis. Great form for the Triple F Racing McLarens. Nice to see all three of them coming through. Just off the tail of the top 10 now, Alvaro Parente. I'm talking about him. Unfortunately, technical issues kept them from qualifying, forced a rear field start. He has just got onto the tail of the top 10. Be looking to try and move as far forward as he can before he hands the car across to Hiroshi Hamaguchi, who has enjoyed victory already, of course, this year in front of his home fans at Okayama during round 3 of the championship. Into the low 148s. Richard Lyons still doing what he can to pull away. Nice job. Carlo Van Dam, instead of attacking now, is going to have to start to watch his mirror as Alessandro Pierre Guidi, the former race winner, alongside Richard Wee in the 2014 GT Asia Series, is starting to move up onto the tail of the number 11 Ferrari immediately in front of him. Although it just seems that Van Dam's realised that and started to stretch out the advantage again and closed just ever so closely to the tail of the number 88 Interrush Aston Martin. Great to see a lot of Interrush people in the crowd. In fact, quite an extensive crowd here for the opening race of GT Asia Series event number 5 at Shanghai. Great to see the Interrush fans in the pits, just on the grid before the race. They were all screaming and shouting. We thought it was for the models that were parading up and down the grid, but it was in fact for Richard Lyons and Frank Yu. So nice to see such great support from their sponsor Interrush here this weekend. Still this battle goes on. McLaren, Ferrari, McLaren, Ferrari, Ferrari. Max Visa just dropping back into the clutches of his teammate Davide Rizzo there. The two Italians hard at it. Both of them live here in Shanghai, and both of them last year were very, very quick in their respective cars. At that stage, it was Ferrari and Aston Martin. This time round, it's Ferrari and Ferrari. In fact, during the Fuji round, Visa and his co-driver, Yang Xin, very talented local driver here in Shanghai, drove the number 37 car. The only change was the number 9 on the side of the door. Very, very competitive. Max Visa loved having the Ferrari under him, of course, being Italian, very parochial, and did a fantastic job. Unfortunately eliminated in a big crash on the opening lap by Kitasawa in the number 8 Bentley, which is well back in this race. You can see it back further behind that pack. In fact, has dropped back now behind Alvaro Parente. So Sawa may be struggling with a few issues. Interesting to note too, Andy Merrick is struggling just a little in the number 7 J-Fly car of Jeffrey Lee. Max Visa eliminated by Kitasawa during the opening race at Fuji. In the second race, though, they charged back through the field. Yang Xin put in a fantastic stint in the testing conditions. And Max Visa finished off, the two of them making the podium. Felt that they probably should have been on the podium in both races, and that was well and truly justified as we look at Rizzo just back behind there, making a move down the inside of Visa 4 position. Now, Visa knows that his teammate is in championship contention. So he's going to race him, but he's not going to race him too hard because he knows that number 37 car needs to take the biggest points haul possible this weekend to keep their championship points alive. Currently, they're only 2 points off the championship lead. And it's important that they press on with that. And at the moment, with Adelie Fong and Kitasawa and that number 8 Bentley back outside the top 10, this could be their opportunity to go into the final round of the championship in just 3 weeks' time in Thailand and go after the title that eluded them last year. Great battle still for the positions further back. This is 4, 5 and 6, the two McLarens. And 5, 6 and 7, of course, Duncan Tappy in position number 4. This will make Jackie Young, car owner, who's absent this weekend, had family commitments in Europe, so a long way from home, from Hong Kong. So he'll be keeping close tabs on this race just to see what the driver's doing with his car. There is Merrick and Parente immediately behind him. They're at the top of the screen and further back, just coming onto the screen now, coming through turn number 13. That was Kitasawa. In fact, that was turn number 10. Kitasawa was just coming through. An area that Hiroshi Hamaguchi will not soon forget. That was the area that he came unstuck in the 2014 championship late in final practice. And unfortunately, the car, his Clearwater Racing McLaren MP412C, ran wide, hit the AstroTurf and was spun very hard into the inside fence, destroying the car. It's only just been rebuilt by the Clearwater Racing team. Such is the strength of the modern day GT3 cars, and it will appear in other competition a little bit later this year, again with the Clearwater Racing team. So nice to see that back. Fortunately, Hiroshi stepped from the car unhurt. They managed to carry on. He and Rob Bell, who won the final round of the Blancpain Series for McLaren last weekend in the Nürburgring, they were able to compete in a backup car for the rest of the weekend. But Hiroshi Hamaguchi had come into Shanghai 12 months ago as a title contender, and unfortunately that was his weekend effectively ruled out, and that dropped him out of the championship hunt as we went to the final round at Macau, which of course was won by his teammate, the very, very successful Mok Weng Sun from Singapore. So Nathan Antunes has just dropped off the tail of Matt Griffin here. Griffin, of course, part of the Clearwater Racing team, had success here in the second race 12 months ago with Richie Wee. Richie had come out of retirement, was effectively a rookie, had not driven a GT3 car before the start of the 2014 season, and wound up being a 2-time winner and crowned the Rookie of the Year last year. Matt Griffin, a big part of this team, has driven alongside Mok Weng Sun and Richie Wee over certainly over the last 12 months, and a winner here last year. So they'll be looking to try and emulate that. Although the pace of the Ferraris this weekend hasn't been quite as quick as we've come to see in the past. So it'll be interesting to see how the race paves out. Certainly Carlo Van Dam's flying in the face of that argument. He's moving up ever so slightly onto the tail of the number 88 Interrush Aston Martin. 260 kilometres an hour at the end of the back straight. They've just come out of turn 14. Very heavy braking into 14. Slight kink turn 15. Left-hander turn 16. And back down the front straight. Somewhere close to 250 kilometres an hour as they prepare to turn into turn 1 at the end of the main straight here. Bit of a fast sweeping right-hander into a very tight right-hand turn 2. And a quick switch back left-hand turn 2. Similar in many senses to the opening part of the Sepang International Circuit, which we were on just 3 weeks ago. That is Andy Merrick leading Daryl O'Young, who's right in this championship. Alvaro Parente immediately behind him. Moved through the field very quickly. Some good lap times into the mid-47s for Parente, but his pace has just dropped off a little bit now. Immediately behind them, Kitasawa seems to have picked up the pace that he was lacking a little bit earlier in this race, so hopefully there's no issue there. Championship points leader, of course, Kitasawa, alongside young Adley Fong, Hong Kong-based driver who's racing in the GP3 Open Wheel Series in Europe and part of the Lotus Formula One development team. He's been a bit of a sensation this year, and alongside Sawa, those two have put themselves into a position where they currently lead the championship points from the car on screen, the yellow VLT, number 99 Craft Bamboo racing car of Daryl O'Young. Of course, O'Young started the season with Australian Jonathan Venter alongside. Just a week out from the Sepang 3-hour race. Unfortunately, Venter fell off his push bike. We call him a push bike in Australia, I suppose. His bike, and broke his hip, unfortunately. He is out for the remainder of this season. He is recovering. And unfortunately, that left a vacancy in the team. They went to the Aston Martin Academy and picked up one of the other drivers in the academy, young Daniel Lloyd. He flew immediately to Sepang and showed just how quick he is by helping Daryl O'Young put the car onto pole position for that race. And they competed very strongly, making the podium. But victory, of course, at that stage went to Anthony Liu and Davide Rizzo, who moved themselves into the championship to take over position number 2 from Daryl O'Young. 93 points. They're only 2 points off the championship lead. 91 points for Daryl O'Young. So O'Young will be hoping that he can find a little bit of form, or certainly Daniel Lloyd can find a little bit of form over the closing stanza of this race. At the moment, they're back towards the tail end of the top 10 and a fair way off their teammates, who is on screen now. We're getting close to the compulsory pit stop window. We'll open at 40% of race distance, 50 minutes for the opening race here on a very busy program with World Touring Cars and the China Touring Car Championship here this weekend in Shanghai. 50 minutes for the opening race. So between 40% and 60% of race distance is when the pit stop window is open. Every driver must pit for a compulsory stop of 85 seconds minimum. And the top 3 from the previous round will stop for an additional 12, 8 and 4 seconds on top of their minimum allocated stop time. We've seen certainly last year teams leave pit lane before that compulsory window had their minimum allocated time had passed, and that had an impact on the end result, of course, given an effective drive-through penalty in addition to their race time at the end of the race. And that certainly cost valuable championship points to a number of teams across the 2014 season. So they'd be very mindful they don't leave before their minimum allocated time and carry on in the race. Might be trying to shave a tenth or two, but that tenth or two could end up costing you a very hefty penalty. Carlo Van Dam's really starting to close in now. He's got the head down and he's starting to charge. He's pulled in a couple of tenths last time round from Richard Lyons. So teams will be keeping a close eye on tyre temperature and degradation, as we see Parente now has gotten around Daryl O'Young to get into the top 10. His next order of business will be one of his Blancpain Series rivals, Andy Merrick. He will be used to being in this position, driving a McLaren. Of course, McLaren factory driver. He's been with McLaren operation for 4 years and been a big part of the development of the 650S GT3. In fact, the engineers were only saying earlier today that the way he drives the car is very different to the likes of Caldarelli, Luzzi and Antunes. He has had a lot of time behind the wheel. Here he is in the 55, just going up the inside there, Daryl O'Young, and Daryl, being the gentleman he is. Oh, was there contact? Would not think so. A couple of wheels on the ripple strip, takes the position away. Daryl O'Young knows he's in the championship, gives him some racing room and allows Alvaro Parente to move through. Of course, Parente will have seen the rear of Andy Merrick's car a number of times over the years. As we're talking about moving through and gaining pace, Carlo Van Dam is almost right up behind, under the wing of the Craft Bamboo Aston. Of course, Van Dam drove with the Craft Bamboo racing team during the 2014 season. And he has now moved across to the Singer operation of Pitty Birambakti, or Todd Pitty as he is. He's certainly known on Facebook and to his friends. He has been a regular in the Thailand Super Series over many years and appeared in the GT Asia Series in a Porsche alongside compatriot Vutikorn last year, and surprised a lot of people at Sepang, certainly in the wet conditions, and proved that he, if he entered the series full-time, would be a contender. And if you look at the championship points so far this year, he sits in position number 4, Pitty Birambakti. Van Dam unfortunately missed the opening round in South Korea. Naoki Yokomizo stepped in to replace him and helped earn the TP12 racing team some very valuable points. And that has kept the Thai driver right in this championship hunt on his debut season full-time, and admitted to really enjoying it. A bit disappointed that they didn't get unofficial practice on Thursday. Of course, the shipping line that unfortunately made some changes to the agreed contract and delayed the delivery of the cars. That cost us Thursday's unofficial practice time, and that was 2 hours, which Birambakti admitted would have been very valuable. But it's not costing them too much right now, as Carlo Van Dam in that number 11 Ferrari, very bright yellow, blue and chrome Singer liveried car, closes right up now into turn 14 under the rear wing of the Interrush Aston Martin. Will he be able to make a move? Just like Richard Lyons, who wants to hand Frank Yu a lead, so too Carlo Van Dam, very, very keen to make an impression and hand his car owner a comfortable lead after the compulsory pit stop. Not long now, only a couple more laps and the window will open. But when the pros come in, that's up to them. They must stop in that allocated window. If they do not, drive-through penalty. I haven't seen too many people over the last couple of seasons pit or make the error of not pitting inside the window. Of course, communications with the pits, the crew will be telling them when to come in. But whether they start right at the beginning of the window and pit to hand over to their co-driver, or pit towards the end and maximise the amount of time that the faster driver is in the car, is entirely up to them. Of course, we have a safety car period. It throws much of that equation out the window, makes it a little bit more difficult for teams to judge the strategy from that point, and often it becomes a bit of a lottery. But currently, it looks like we are going to run trouble-free up into the window, and then from there we will see who will be the first of this group to dive in, or will they all come in together, which is probably the likely scenario right towards the end of this compulsory pit stop window. And we talk about pro drivers and AM drivers. The car owners are professional business people. They don't drive race cars every weekend. The 3 drivers on screen, Richard Lyons last weekend was in a Super GT car in Japan. The man behind him, Carlo Van Dam, was actually racing go-karts with Kimi Räikkönen, the Formula One driver, in Singapore when the Grand Prix was on. And immediately behind him, Alessandro Guidi was in a Ferrari in the Blancpain GT series at the Nürburgring last weekend. These are professional race drivers. However, the amateur drivers in this series have gotten to the point where they are very, very competitive and will often get to within 2 or 3 seconds of the pace of the pro drivers. And that has proven to be the big key for this series this year, is the most competitive driver combination. Another prime example, Daryl O'Young, who we see on screen. So he has had his compulsory stop. So he has already made the jump. They've stopped early. That's Daniel Lloyd behind the wheel now, the young Englishman from Huddersfield has taken over the wheel of the number 99 VLT Aston Martin. So that's Craft Bamboo 1-2, but he is in fact a lap down now on the leader. He'll have to be mindful that he doesn't interfere too much with this race, and he's allowed Carlo Van Dam to go through. But he'll be keen to get the pace up on this car. Handed across at about P10, P11 in this race from Daryl O'Young. Now that is Kitasawa also in quite early to hand the number 8 iWorks Absolute Racing Bentley Continental over to his fellow dual race winner for 2015, Adley Fong. Still the race wages on. Now that little move to get around Daniel Lloyd, he's allowed both the Ferraris through now, has just delayed Carlo Van Dam a fraction and allowed Richard Lyons to just sneak ahead and eke out a little bit more of a lead. There'll be a couple more laps perhaps before the pro drivers come in, as now Jerry Wang, that is the GTM class points leader. No, he's just coming onto the front straight. He doesn't go into pit lane just yet, because he is the only driver in this field who is a single entry. Still must make his compulsory pit stop and stop for an allocated time that would effectively not disadvantage the two driver teams. So he'll be in for his 85 seconds at some stage. And unfortunately for him, the points leader and winner last time out, another Australian, Warren Luff alongside, they took a comfortable double points victory in the GTM class at Sepang. As you see, the Suze, the LKM Porsche GT3R, which is now classified a GTM class machine, one of the older GT3 specification cars, a 2011 car. The Sue brothers, the LKM team, stalwarts with the GT Asia Series, been around a very long time and very big in the career of New Zealander Earl Bamber, a big part of the reason that young Bamber went on to win multiple Carrera Cup titles and be signed on to the Porsche LMP1 program, and of course is the reigning Le Mans champion this year, thanks in very big part to the LKM team. And the Sue brothers, of course, Su Yuk Lung and Su Tit Lung, have been a big part of GT in the Asian region for very many years, and nice to see them here competing, and in fact in a podium position currently for the GTM class. That was a strange move a little bit further back for one of the Bentleys, suddenly ducked off the race line to the middle of part of the track, so hopefully there's no issue there. Not quite sure whether that was the Jeffrey Lee car or whether that was in fact Adley Fong having returned to this race. So not much drop-off there from young Daniel Lloyd off the tail of the three superstars in front of him. Of course, a very talented young driver, only early in his career. Part of the Aston Martin Academy, has been in the British GT Championship, raced a number of different GT cars for Aston Martin in Europe over the last 12 months, and showed, of course, at Sepang that he was very, very fast. Around to go one more time. Richard Lyons is carrying on. We're well into this pit window now. A number of teams have made their compulsory stop, but the leaders, they're going to carry on. You see another one there. That may well, in fact, have been Duncan Tappy, the next one to come in the JV Global Bentley. Of course, they don't want to cross the line and miss that window. They have to be in pit lane by the time the compulsory pit stop window closes at 60% race distance. So these drivers are aware of that. If Tappy's come in, you'd almost guarantee the leading trio will be in at the end of this lap. Tappy will hand over to Andrew Kim. Andrew Kim is replacing car owner Jackie Jung, who is elsewhere committed with family this weekend. And Andrew Kim has been one of the revelations of the Audi R8 LMS Cup this year in Asia in the amateur division. In fact, so good that many have been calling for him to be promoted to a professional class driver alongside the likes of Alex Jung, who is the reigning champion in that class, Marchie Lee, who's been a part of this series in the past, in fact driving for this particular team, the Absolute Racing team. Ho Pin Tung stepping from the car. He's thrown his arms in the air because, unfortunately for him, it's Tom Coronel, the World Touring Car Championship driver, getting a photograph alongside him. Unfortunately for Ho Pin Tung, they had an issue on the opening lap and were forced into pit lane, so they've dropped a lap back on the lead pack. And frustration for them. In fact, during practice, Ho Pin Tung, very experienced campaigner, won the Carrera Cup race at Singapore just last weekend, was as high as 8th in the grid. In fact, it was only 6 or 7 tenths off the pace of the lead drivers, and that's an impressive turn of form for the leading GT3, against the leading GT3 cars. As now the leader comes in, Richard Lyons in, Carlo Van Dam in, So too Alessandro Guidi to hand over to Mock, the car owner and the reigning champion. He's going to close right up under the tail of Van Dam there. Of course, speed limit down pit lane they have to adhere to, and the clock will start for their minimum time the second they enter pit lane and cross the pit entry. So these three drivers will be out of their cars to hand over to the respective car owners. See some work going on the OD Racing Lamborghini. They had a drama on the opening lap and in fact started this race from pit lane. So Ferris Fauzi has handed the car over to car owner Zen Lowe. Unfortunately for them, they had some big dramas during the recent KL Street race. That car very heavily into the fence with Fauzi at the wheel. There was a electrical issue with the gearbox that did something strange to the car and just threw the former F1 test driver sideways into the barriers. It was very strange to see a driver of his calibre have an accident, but of course there had been a technical issue with the car. It looks like there's been a problem on the right rear there. If you just look at the right rear of the car, the guard's torn away, so they may have had some other issue with that car, and they've had an engine problem too. They're running a spare engine which is down on horsepower, and unfortunately for them, they're a good 2 or 3 seconds down. So there's Andrew Kim. We were just talking about him, the Audi driver. His first laps were practice 1 here, the first of the 2 45-minute sessions on Friday. He's been adapting very, very quickly, but very new to him, the Bentley versus the LMS Audi he's driven. Now this is coming out of pit lane. That's Pitty going around the outside of Mock to take position number 2 away. That's a great move, straight out of pit lane, straight around the outside. He is race ready and firing. We've seen him do this before. He's gotten straight into the very warm car after Van Dam has started and been very quick. We watched it happen too at Fuji earlier in the year. Weng Sun just a little bit off pace. Not 100% comfortable here in Shanghai, but look at the pace of Biram Bhakti. He's closed right up onto the tail already of Frank Yu, who's the effective race leader here now. So Biram Bhakti in car 11, Frank Yu in car number 88. And the reigning champion, Mok Weng Sun, behind the wheel of car number 1. Look how quick Biram Bhakti is on his opening lap. Yu's just come out of pit lane 2. He needs to get himself up to speed. It's not just the car is up to temperature, but the driver, they've been watching all of this unfold in pit lane. So it's the driver best able to adapt to jumping straight in the car and firing out the door at 10 tenths that's going to make the most of this start. But for Biram Bhakti, he knows he's got some fast drivers coming behind. Okay, he's got around Weng Sun. We know he finds pace towards the closing stage of the session. Lights flashing on the number 11 Singer Ferrari. I don't think that's going to work on Frank Yu. So the driver's a little bit further back. Richie Wee, we've seen him. He's been a race winner here in the past. He's in position 4. Behind him, Andrew Kim in the JV Global car. A little bit heavy on the throttle there, just coming out of turn 14 for Biram Bhakti as he closes once more up under the rear wing of the Interrush Aston Martin. This will have the fans supporting Interrush here this weekend going absolutely berserk in the grandstand, and there are a lot of them. The biggest field we've seen, or the biggest fan base we've seen here for GT Asia Series this year. The grandstand's almost full. It's an amazing sight here at the Shanghai Formula 1 circuit. Up the inside, is he going to be able to get the position? A little bit wide there, Frank Yu into turn 1. Biram Bhakti closes up again, not quite quick enough to cut across to the inside. Wide again too for Frank Yu, just a little touch on the left rear there by Biram Bhakti. He's desperate to get past. Up to the chicane, no passing move there. Won't get through at that part of the circuit. Perhaps on the run on the long straight down to turn 14, but very, very closely matched. We saw it in practice. We saw it in qualifying. Very little separating these cars. In fact, the Ferrari seems to be making more at the moment under brakes and not out of the corners, as it has done on a number of occasions this year. Certainly at Sepang, it was the absolute standout. But Biram Bhakti is doing everything he can. Yu's getting himself up to speed, but at the same time, he's defending. You can see he's not taken the optimum line into turn 11. He's just taking a defensive line to keep that Ferrari behind him. No opportunity to pass there for Biram Bhakti. Now on the long straight, Yu needs to do everything he can to maximise his track position, to fire down to the end of the straight, to keep his lead into turn 14. He can defend then again on the run down to 16. Then the next lap starts. Only got about 15 minutes left in this race, and it's certainly starting to heat up. You see Mock is comfortable in position number 3. Behind him, his teammate. We see him on screen there now. That is Richie Wee. Behind him, That is Andrew Kim. The car behind that, though, is the one these drivers need to keep an eye on. And so, too, the one with lights ablaze. As Anthony Liu won here 12 months ago, almost won the championship last year. Behind him, Daniel Lloyd, we've seen how quick he can be. And Adderley Fong's the next one in line. These three are the three cars fighting for the championship and the fastest combination driver teams in this series. So expect to see them close in. And Todd Pitty knows all about that. That's why he's going to take another move up the inside. Still very wide by Frank Hughes. Is he going to make it stick on the one down the inside this time? No, he's tapped him. He's gone up the grass. He's tapped him in the left rear. He tapped him in the right rear, rather, and that spun Frank Yu around. Now, you had a pretty good lead there, or the lead duo had a good lead over the pack behind them, so he should be able to recover and maintain third position. But that's not what Frank Yu needed. Just a tough position to be in. He just opened the door for Pitty to fire up the inside. The Thai driver got alongside him. So look at the replay. Just a little wide, the Aston Martin. Pitty's just maybe touched him there on the run to one, turning into two. He's halfway up the door, but just tapped in the rear wheel. You can see that. Oh, this is drama. That's one of the McLarens. That looks like it may well be the number 15 car. That's the Nathan Antunis Rod Salmon Triple F racing team by ACM McLaren. That's a shocking crash. It's destroyed the front of the car. It's torn the wheels off. The safety marshal very quickly on the scene. Now, he's obviously taking a look to see whether there's any movement from, assuming it's Rod Salmon. Now, there's Salmon, middle of the track. He's being passed by cars. He's moved across to take the race line, just clipped the number 69 GTM Ferrari, and at almost unabated speed. That will be in excess of 200 kilometres an hour into the barriers. You see his hands moving. The doors open. That's incredible. Such a big impact. The doors open. And there's not a lot of fussing about, but certainly no great drama from the officials. So hopefully Rod Salmon, and he stepped from the car. That's incredible. He's walking away from the car after an impact of over 200 kilometres an hour into the Armco barriers. That is incredible. That accident, saw it with my own eyes in 2014, is reminiscent of exactly what happened to Hiroshi Hamaguchi during practice here. And that was at turn 10 on this circuit, on the exit of turn 10. But great to see Rod Salmon walk away. Now, that, of course, has brought out the safety car. That will close things back up at the front of the field. You can see one of the wheels, the left front, torn off. It's sitting in the circuit behind the car. That is a big impact, but how impressive is a car to take an impact like that? In fact, the left rear is also torn off the car. The door has opened and allowed Rod Salmon to step from this car. Hopefully, we hope, only shocked and perhaps a little bruised, but certainly appears unhurt. It's the hallmark of the strength of the current GT3 cars. Very, very fast. Speeds at the end of the straight here at Shanghai of approaching 270 kilometres an hour. Now, this is the 5 car. There's Tonio Luzzi, the team car, the second team car, the car that he is sharing this weekend with Sean Fu, the Triple F part of the Triple F racing team by ACM. Of course, another Chinese driver. See it going past that less than pristine number 15 McLaren 650S GT3. And certainly the safety structure and the safety cells built into these cars are incredible. So Luzzi had a strong opening session. He's handed the car well inside the top 10 over to Sean Fu, who's now behind the wheel of the number 5 car. Usually shares with Andrea Caldarelli. Now there's Rod Salmon. That's a very good sight to see for any team and any family. He looks like he's okay on the back of the recovery cycle and heading back to pit lane to no doubt explain what might have happened with that car. Now it was involved, interestingly, in an incident yesterday during qualifying. Young Australian Nathan Antunis was on a hot lap during qualifying, tucked up under the rear wing of one of the Bentleys. And as the Bentley approached the final turn, there's a tyre bundle on the inside. They're just going to wave the Dylan Dedali Hisashi Kuna GTM class-leading Porsche past. It had gone a lap down, so that'll bring it back to the tail of the leaders. Antunis was tucked in under the rear wing of one of the Bentleys. He said, I had very little vision. We turned into the final turn, and unfortunately, the Bentley had taken a line that wasn't quite to the apex. They readjusted their steering angle as they got into the corner. He said, the next thing I knew, was my Apex, had a tyre bundle in the middle of it. He said, I just managed to get most of the car around, but rubbed the guard and smashed the mirror. As we look again at this incident. Now, Salmon appeared to be going a bit slower. Certainly you wouldn't expect a GTM class Ferrari to catch him, and he was in the middle of the circuit. He's moved across to the left, and the point we're going to make was it actually broke the incident that Antunes had, broke the mirror on the left side. Now, certainly the McLaren team has plenty of spares. Whether or not they could effect a complete spare for that mirror or not, I actually didn't ask that question, but it had done damage to the left side of the car. You can see the cooling ducts in the mirror, so it may be that they were able to replace the housing, which in part is cooling into the engine, into the cockpit rather, for the drivers, but unable to replace the mirror in its full extent. So whether that's contributed in any way to what happened, because it certainly appeared that Salmon was completely unaware that the James K. Kenneth Lim front-running GTM class Ferrari was actually alongside him. And it shouldn't have been, in fact, given that this was a long straight and the performance difference between the 650S GT3 and the 458 Challenge car, certainly firing out of the relatively slow left-hand turn 16 onto a long straight, shouldn't have seen, head-to-head, shouldn't have seen a GTM class Ferrari be able to range up alongside a 650S McLaren. And Rod Salmon, no slouch, reigning trophy class, which is essentially GTM class, in Australia champion in an Audi R8, has won the Bathurst 12 Hour twice, has an illustrious career over many years, is no slouch. So very strange to see the pace of that car allowing a GTM class Ferrari to catch him and pull alongside on the front straight here at Shanghai. So one wonders whether there may have been some other issue for the experienced Australian veteran. So hopefully unhurt, but it would seem that that car's unlikely to take any further part. Now look at this replay for the lead of this race. Car 11's just gone up the inside. Now Frank, it may have been difficult visibility-wise to see that the Ferrari was there. It doesn't look intentional, certainly, by Pitty's part. He hasn't driven along those lines all year, but he was as far to the right, it seems, as he actually could be. In fact, two wheels on the ripple strip on the way in. And just a slight tap was enough to unsettle the number 88 Interrush car, and that's thrown him around. Fortunately, Frank was able to regroup, had a fair lead between the top two and Weng Sun in the number 1 Clearwater Racing Ferrari. So he managed to turn around, lost the position to the number 1 car, and he's now in position number 3. So as soon as we get a restart, once the officials have cleared the circuit, we will see what Frank Yu can then do. There he is on screen now in position number 3. Immediately behind him, the Lou Rizzo car. Immediately behind that, his teammate, Daniel Lloyd, the young Englishman from Huddersfield, which interestingly has been explained to me was where Aston Martin was essentially conceived. David Brown is the man who developed Aston Martin alongside tractors and hydraulics and, in fact, Centurion tanks, amongst other things. His initial base was in Huddersfield, which is the hometown of young Daniel Lloyd, driving the number 99 car alongside Darryl O'Young. So we check the championship points. Adley Fong and Kitasawa, 95 points in this championship. The number 9 behind them in the number 37 car, the red and yellow Ferrari, just coming on screen now. Position number 4 in this race, Anthony Liu and Davide Rizzo, by virtue of winning the double points race at Sepang, 93 points. Then Darryl O'Young stands alone in 3rd position on 91 points. Pitty Birambakti, you see him, he is in position number 2, was in fact leading this race. He was in position number 2 prior to that contact with Frank Yu. 4th in the championship on 70 points. 63 points then to young Jonathan Venter. Such a good job the Australian did over the opening rounds of this championship. He is still in position 5, despite the fact that he is not going to be here this weekend, and he wasn't at the double point scoring race at Sepang. Yet he still holds position number 6 in this championship. The reigning champion, Weng Sun, 61 points. So he's a good 34 points off the points lead. It's not impossible, but it is going to be very difficult for the Clearwater Racing driver, who has won 20 of the 57 races he has contested across 6 seasons of the GT Asia Series. The only other driver to have contested more races is the man we just saw being turned sideways in turn 2. The Craft Bamboo Racing team boss Frank Yu is taking a look there as they recover the number 15 McLaren. Sans 2 wheels, unfortunately for it. Hopefully it's not getting too much more damage, but I don't think you can really do too much more damage in that. That is a big hit. You can see the front chassis rails bent around, but the crumple zones have done exactly what they needed to do. And look at the safety cell, the capsule in which the driver sits. Very strong carbon fibre safety cell. It looks like it's completely intact. In fact, so much so that despite an impact that could have been over 200 kilometres an hour, we can't surmise as to what problem Rod Salmon may have been having that dropped his pace down, but you'd expect the impact would still have been at some speed around that. He's been able to open the door and step away from the car. And anybody that drives a standard road car will know that even an innocuous hit at 30 or 40 kilometres an hour in a supermarket car parking centre is enough to push a guard onto a door and make it almost impossible to get out of the car. And yet this has been an impact of some 200 odd kilometres an hour, and Rod Salmon's been able to pop open the door and just walk away from what is left of the number 15 Triple F for McLaren. Rather, not a sight we needed to see. There's still 2 more of the McLarens on screen. That's Sean Fu, the second of the cars on screen, and Hiroshi Hamaguchi, a winner already this year, who himself was involved in a horrific accident, almost identical, but at turn 10 on this circuit just 12 months ago. Again, Hamaguchi popped the door, walked away from the McLaren. Apparently, the only thing they could recover from that car, which has just recently been rebuilt, was the steering wheel and one of the bolts inside the car. It's yellow flag, safety car looks like it may pull in. Green flag now, so Todd Petty is going to lead this field down the main straight. We have a restart with 10 minutes to go. Frank Hugh's gone around again. This is incredible. We're just talking about the luck of the number 88 Interrush Aston Martin, and he's gone around again. Now this time he is dead last. Now what's happened there? The car immediately behind him is the car on screen, the 37 car. Now he's run wide under brakes into turn 1, and that has allowed Daniel Lloyd through. Now these cars have been circulating for 10 minutes behind the safety car. Tyre temperature is gone. So whether the drivers are going to be sharp and right on it now, that's going to be decided very, very soon. We've seen Piti Bhirombhakdi came out of the pits after the compulsory stop and just drove around Mok Weng Sun all over the rear of Frank Yu immediately. Now we see Mok Weng Sun coming under fire around the outside now. Goes the young Englishman. That is an incredible move from Daniel Lloyd. And next corner, we're up to turn number 9. That is Anthony Liu going past the reigning champion, the man he fought for the title 12 months ago. So we will see which drivers have fired up and got onto the pace quickly. Now, of course, drivers like Adley Fong, as we see go up the inside now of Andrew Kim, he's used to having to get the maximum out of the car on a restart. He races the GP3 International Series. Daniel Lloyd has been used to getting pace out of the car very early in a stint, and he's done just that. He's currently position number 2 and raging up on the tail of Piti Bhirombhakdi, who we're just talking about, managed to be perhaps the quickest to extract speed from the car after his compulsory stop. Already Daniel Lloyd's looking to pull alongside the Thai driver. There's only 8 minutes left in this race, and he's going to try and go around the outside. Bhirombhakdi's wise to that. He's got the control of the race, and that's opened the door now as he slowed the young Englishman down. Anthony Liu's now taken the position away. He's going to try and go at the inside. He very slightly had the lead, and he's now right in this mix. We're going to see a 3-wide run down the front straight. This is incredible. In fact, we've only got a lap to go in this race. Anthony Liu has the advantage up the inside. What's going to happen? Around the outside. Daniel Lloyd's gone around the outside into the braking zone to turn 1 at Shanghai. That's an incredible move. He's seen it, obviously, in the past. There's a lot of grip on the outside of this circuit. He's used that to his advantage. Little bit skiddy, and he's gone around the outside of both Anthony Liu and Todd Petty to take position number 1 away. Now, we know that Anthony Liu is quick around this circuit. We know he's quick in this car. He was a winner here last year and a pole sitter. So this isn't over yet for Daniel Lloyd. There'll be celebration down in the Craft Bamboo pits if they manage to pull this one off, because this would almost bring Darryl O'Young back into the lead of the championship, because the car behind him is right in this title chase too. They are ahead on points by 2 of Darryl O'Young, and the car that's in position 4, if it can make up another position, we'll see the 3 top teams on equal points at the top of this championship points table. As now Hiroshi Yamaguchi fires down the inside of his old boss, Mockwing's son, and then just gets it a little bit wrong on the exit and allows the Ferrari driver to pull alongside. Then it'll be a drag race all the way down the back straight to turn 14, up to 260, 270 kilometres per hour between the McLaren and the Ferrari. But Hamaguchi looks like he's taken the position. Young Zin, the car at the rear there, the blue and black car, that is the Spirit of Race Ferrari 458 he shares with Max Visa. They are locals here too. Good experience on the Shanghai circuit. Andrew Kim's going to come under fire. He tries to protect his line. He looks like he's done that for the JV Global team. Carrick hangs on to position 7, runs wide on the exit. Now that'll be enough for Young Zin to perhaps get alongside, although he's a little bit wary of trying to go through the final turn too wide alongside one of the Bentleys. See, the clock is ticking down. In fact, 13 seconds to go. So this will be the last lap. Daniel Lloyd has got himself to the front of the field. Anthony Liu, position number 2. Piti Bhirombhakdi currently holding down position 3. This is the battle for position number 7. Currently Andrew Kim ahead of Young Zin. Still not over. Adley Fong is doing everything he can to try and get past that number 11 Ferrari. He is in the championship hunt. Currently the points leader coming into this race. If he can finish ahead of the Thai Ferrari, and the race is classified like this, we don't know what may or may not happen with stewards' hearings after this race, because certainly there's been a little bit of contact. If he gets to 3rd position, this will have 3 teams, the top 3 teams on equal points at the top of this point standings going into tomorrow's second 60-minute race. And that will be the 3rd last race of the season, because we have 1 round of the championship left yet to come. That is in 4 weeks' time in Thailand at the new Chang International Circuit at Buriram. And you'd expect to see that car on screen, the number 11 Singer-supported Ferrari, as one of the hot contestants there, given it is their essentially home circuit. Can Fong win the drag race? He tries to tuck, he goes left, he goes right, he goes left again. He has Hiroshi Hamaguchi behind him, but this drag race with the Ferrari, we know how good the pace of the Ferrari is in a straight line and firing out of the corners with the torque of that 458 engine. Of course, naturally aspirated 4.5 litre V8. Can he get up the inside, Adley Fong? This is the last lap, the last corner. He's got to watch out for Hamaguchi. But up front, though, again, this is incredible. Second start, second win. Daniel Lloyd, brilliant drive to take victory for the number 99 VLT team. Anthony Liu across the line second. Piti Bhirombhakdi third. And 4th, of course, to Adley Fong, just clear of Hiroshi Yamaguchi. Mockwing's son. Then it is Andrew Kim, Young Zin. That will be Jeffrey Lee crossing the line immediately behind. And then Richie Wee dropping a little bit further back after being as high as 4th. He'll be in position number 10, and Frank Yu will cross the line in position number 11. But good result too. The Golf Racing JP Porsche of Dylan Durdali and Hisashi Kuni will take out the victory in the GTM class. Second place there. The car involved in that big incident with Rod Salmon, the Kenneth Lim and James Kay Ferrari 458. And the Sue brothers in the LKM Porsche will claim position number 3. So that's it for round 8 of the GT Asia Series here in Shanghai. Next up, race number 2 tomorrow afternoon. We hope you join us. You can catch all the action on facebook.com/GT Asia Series, and also join in the conversation on twitter.com/GT Asia Series. And for those of you surfing the World Wide Web, please join us at gtasiaseries.com. We'll see you again tomorrow for what promises to be a second very exciting race from here at Shanghai International Circuit in China.